Welcome back to our channel. Before I continue, I'm going to ask you to please like and subscribe if you have not done so already. So last week, I spoke about what it means to be a Christian and the difference between being a generic Christian and one who has a thriving relationship with the Lord, one who hears from Him, one who speaks with Him, one who calls Him a friend, and one who believes that they are a son or a daughter. And so today I want to segue from that teaching, that conversation, into talking about how the kingdom is propagated. And the reason why I think there's a connection between what I spoke about last week and being a Christian and this week's teaching is because we forget that when we talk about the kingdom and we throw words around like revival and societal transformation, we tend to make a disconnect between people, personal revival, and personal transformation, and how that will affect and how the fruit of that will actually bring that transformation. And I spoke about that fruit last week, so you can go ahead and, if you haven't heard the teaching, you can go back and listen to that. But a long time ago, I used to think that revival and transformation would happen in almost for lack of a better word, in a magical way. Like the Lord would just sweep over a nation and revival will happen. And I used to attend prayer meetings, and I used to think, okay, we're going to pray and then transformation is going to happen. That's not the way it happens. Transformation, societal transformation, occurs through us, through people. We carry revival. And so when we receive transformation, when we receive personal healing and freedom when we come to the Lord, then from that place of being transformed, we move out, and then the fruit of that will and should touch those around us. And then that will produce fruit and touch those around that other sphere, and on and on and on. It's like a spiritual domino effect, right? But we tend to always we want to focus on the outward, on things that are out there. And the last place we want to look at is within. And it just doesn't happen that way. Back to the analogy about how I used to think that God will just sweep over a nation and that's how revival happens and that's how transformation occurs. Well, the thing is that God can do that. I mean, He can, but He won't. He won't. Do you know why? Because there's a partnership that we have. He partners with us. And I always say this, that, without God, we can't. And without us, He won't. We are partnering with Him to bring heaven to earth. And so the way heaven comes to earth isn't, this magical thing that happens and a cloud, descends. No, transformation in our society will happen when people, through partnering with the Lord, people change first. Our hearts are going to change first. And that's why I believe, and I am such an advocate for inner healing and for getting that trauma, those things that we carry, deliverance, those mindsets, the continual and ongoing spiritual journey of us getting to the root of a lot of that, let's call it stinking thinking, and replacing those old thought patterns with the truth. And so once we do that, and once we can begin to move in that. Now, I'm not saying that, we have to be perfect and be completely freed up. No. There's a difference between, waiting and saying, I have to wait, until I get every single thing rooted out of me. No, that's probably going to be a lifetime journey. It should be, at least, right? Because Holy Spirit will highlight things. So we don't wait. We don't sit around and say, okay, I have to wait now and I have to go through inner healing for the next 10 years until I can do. No, but we move forward in faith. We continue to work on that junk, that old stuff, that's there that needs to come out. And as we do that, that is going to begin to produce fruit. It's not perfection. It's movement. It's us moving forward. It's us getting to the point where, the Spirit shows us something and we go and we deal with it and continue in that. And again, that's going to produce fruit. And that is how societies are transformed, and not the other way around. And I'm going to say something. I don't want to step on people's toes, and I know people are very, very defensive about this. They're like, oh, don't touch that. But in Americanized Christianity, we have put the cart before the horse. I feel like we have, because what we do is we focus on things like laws. Let's get these laws changed. Let's change the law, right? And that's great. And that'll happen. But we neglect many times for that inner transformation first. A lot of the people that are, just purporting, a lot of laws changed and doing a lot of the outward things, I just have to say, that maybe there's a character issues and maybe there's a lack of connection with the Father heart there, maybe, because when the Father heart, when you are connected to the Father heart, there is a different fruit that is produced. And that fruit has a lot to do with peace. And when I see anger, I see a lot of anger and being called as zeal for God. I just don't see that as the fruit of abiding in the Spirit. And so to me, that's, again, putting the cart before the horse, trying to change things outwardly and not first having a transformation of the heart and advocating for that. And I want to give an example. I've talked about Almalonga, Guatemala, and I'm going to talk about it again because it's one of the few places that sees, to this day, sustained transformation in their city. And so we want that, but we don't want to do it the right way. We keep wanting to take shortcuts. People, beloved Christians, brothers and sisters, we're doing it the wrong way. We are wanting to change things outwardly first without first going through, a heart transformation. And we want other people to change, outwardly without taking them through an inward journey of transforming their hearts first. And so in Almalonga, Guatemala, I'm going to get the dates confused because I did not put that information down on my notes here, but I know that it was in the 60s or 70s, early 70s. So Almalonga is a little city in Guatemala near the mountains, where there was this deity for years and years and years, that was worshipped. And there was just the spirit of alcoholism was so rampant. There was poverty. And it was a place that was riddled with darkness. And then something happened. Well, the church, there was a church and there were Christians who kept trying to change things, but it wasn't happening. Nothing was really happening. And then there was a man who was healed and he was delivered from alcoholism, right? And this man had a testimony now in his life. He was literally changed from the inside out. And that's where it begins. So guess what happened? His family also got touched. And from there, they began praying for people. And people began to experience deliverance and freedom and inner healing. And so what started to happen is that as more people began to experience freedom, the city, It doesn't take too. It's like we try to make we try to make it hard, but it's not. So when people began to change and their hearts began to change and they were led to the Lord, and they were led to from being generic Christians to actually apprehending their spiritual journey and longing for true freedom, their city began to change, because the more people that began to experience freedom, the city was getting transformed. Poverty levels began to come down. They are now known as the vegetable basket of the Americas. They produce most of the vegetables that get shipped out to the Americas, to Central America and South America, even maybe. I'm not sure about that one, but they're thriving economically now, and all the bars. I don't know if I can say all, but most of the bars have closed down, and some of them have become churches. About 80% of the population now is saved. They're Christians, but again, I don't think that they are those Christians that are generic Christians, because then that fruit wouldn't be there, and their city wouldn't be transformed. And that deity, and I forgot to write the deity's name down, that was no one is sacrificing to that deity anymore. No one is doing any of that stuff that they used to do with their offerings and all that. And the city is thriving. It's beautiful. And again, the poverty levels have almost but disappeared. And it's a different city. It's a transformed city. And it's been sustained since the 70s. And so that's what we'd like. That's when I hear kingdom, and when I hear heaven on earth, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. That's what I want. But that's not going to happen by focusing on outward stuff, on stuff that, first trying to, again, put the cart before the horse. And I'm not saying that laws won't follow, but we first do the work of getting hearts changed and transformed. And that's all I wanted to say today, that when we focus on inner revival and personal transformation, that's going to have fruit, because of that, what I call, I don't know if that's a term or not, but I call that spiritual domino effect. And when someone begins a spiritual journey and receives freedom and continues to live in that, they will have fruit. And that fruit is going to produce more fruit. And that is going to produce more fruit. And so on, and so on, and so on. That is how a city, a nation is saved, is transformed. And that is how sustained revival will happen. I believe it will happen. I know that we will get to a point where our society is going to, just like in Almalonga, all the places that dispel darkness are going to be closed down. I know, and I believe it. But I would love for us to get there a lot faster than maybe it will take to get there, because I feel like it's a battle of narratives. It's a battle of truth. Not even narrative. That's the wrong word. It's the truth. It's clinging to what the word says about our freedom, about our connection as sons and daughters, and living that out. When we get that in our Americanized Christianity, when we get that inner transformation and inner healing and inner freedom and inner revival, to live in revival inwardly, when we get that's what needs to happen first. And then that'll spread into our families and in our neighborhoods and our friends and our workplaces. When we get that, there is going to be a shift. And so I just pray that we sit with that. Whoever listens to this, even the 10 people that may listen to this message, if this is something that, you want to see your city burn for the Lord, and you want to see your city transformed, then begin with yourself. Begin with looking inward. Begin with a radical spiritual journey of going after the Lord, seeking those places that need freedom, and watch the fruit that will produce. So I pray in Jesus' name that you will receive an impartation today of going after that, of personal revival, and a longing to see transformation from within to your spheres of influence and beyond. I pray you have an awesome week. I'll see you soon.